I never imagined that the worst betrayal of my life would come wrapped in a birthday text from my own daughter. My name is Lorraine Mae Jefferson, and I'm 67 years old. For 4 decades, I built an empire from nothing, a consulting firm that helped minority businesses survive and thrive in a system designed to keep us out. I raised my daughter to value hard work, integrity, and family. But somewhere along the way, I made a terrible mistake. I gave her everything she ever wanted, and in doing so, I taught her that she deserved everything without ever having to earn it. This is the story of how a single text message on my birthday revealed the monster I'd created, and how I fought to reclaim not just my money, but my dignity. It started on a Thursday morning in July. I woke up at 6 like always, made coffee in the chipped mug Simone had painted for me in elementary school, and waited for my phone to ring. My daughter had never missed my birthday, not once in 42 years. We were close, or at least I thought we were. She called me every Sunday. She came for dinner once a month. She told me she loved me. But that morning, my phone stayed silent. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. My hands shook as I typed out a message. Just wanted to say I love you both. Hope you're having a good day. Simple, not needy, just a reminder that I existed. The response came 30 seconds later. We need space from you. Stop contacting us. We'll reach out when we're ready. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. Space? From me? We just had dinner 2 weeks ago. Everything had been fine. What had I done? And then I saw the detail that turned my confusion into ice-cold clarity. Below the message was a small thumbs-up icon from Simone's number. My daughter had read her husband Devin's text telling me to leave them alone, and she'd liked it. She'd endorsed it with a casual tap, the same way you'd approve a restaurant recommendation. I set my phone down carefully on the kitchen counter and walked to the window. Outside, the roses my late husband Marcus and I had planted 20 years ago were blooming bright against the morning sun. Marcus had been gone 12 years now, and Simone had been my anchor through all of it, or so I'd thought. The memories came flooding back then, all the things I'd been ignoring for years, the constant requests for money that had started small and grown exponentially. $5,000 for Devin's business idea, $10,000 for their down payment, $20,000 for renovations, $30,000 when Devin's investment fell through. I'd given it all without question, without conditions, because that's what mothers do. We provide, we support, except somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being their mother and become their ATM. I opened my banking app and scrolled through 3 years of transactions. My stomach turned with each swipe. Luxury resort charges, designer boutiques, a Tesla I'd co-signed for, a home equity line against my house that I'd guaranteed when their income wasn't sufficient. The total made me physically ill. $400,000, and on my birthday, they couldn't even send a text. They could only tell me to stop bothering them. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Simone had done her homework, where Marcus and I had shared morning coffee for 30 years, and I felt something fundamental shift inside me. It wasn't rage, it was colder than that. It was clarity. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Simone's contact. Her smiling face looked back at me from last Christmas, both of us laughing. I blocked her number. Then I blocked Devin's. The house got quieter somehow, as if the universe was holding its breath. Then I made the second call. Mitchell & Associates, how may I help you? This is Lorraine Jefferson. I need to speak with James Mitchell immediately. Tell him it's urgent. James had been my attorney for 35 years, Marcus's college roommate, one of our closest friends. When his assistant put me through, concern filled his voice. Lorraine? What's wrong? My voice came out steady, surprisingly so. James, I need you to clear your schedule tomorrow morning. We need to completely restructure my trust and estate documents. I want Simone removed as beneficiary, effective immediately. I want her access to any accounts, any lines of credit, anything with my name on it, cut off by close of business tomorrow. There was a pause, then quietly. I've been expecting this call for about 6 months now, Lorraine. Ever since that dinner where Devin was asking all those questions about your assets. You saw it too? I've been practicing law for 40 years. I know what financial predators look like. The question is, what do you want to do with the assets once we remove them? I looked around my kitchen, at the life I'd built, at 40 years of hard work, and I thought about all those young people out there who were just like I'd been at 20, ambitious, hungry, willing to work, but lacking capital and connections. I want to create a foundation, I said, for minority entrepreneurs, full mentorship, seed capital, business development support. Everything Marcus and I had to figure out the hard way. I want to call it the Marcus Jefferson Legacy Fund. He would have loved that. I know, I whispered. That's why I'm doing it. I spent the rest of that day going through every document, every account, every piece of paper with their names on it. The co-signed car lease, the credit card guarantees, the backup line of credit for Devon's failed ventures, even the family cell phone plan I was still paying for. That night, I barely slept. I lay in the bed I'd shared with Marcus for 30 years and let myself feel the full weight of my betrayal. Not their betrayal of me, but my betrayal of Marcus's memory. He'd worked himself nearly to death, building our company, our security, our legacy, and I'd been giving it away piece by piece to a daughter who'd learned to see me as nothing more than an open checkbook. I'm sorry, baby, I whispered into the darkness, but I'm going to fix this. I promise. The next morning, I dressed in my best navy suit, the one Marcus always said made me look like I owned the world. I put on my mother's gold earrings and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back was older than I felt, her hair more silver than black now, lines around her eyes, but her eyes were clear and hard and absolutely certain. James's office occupied the entire 20th floor of a glass building in Buckhead. His assistant Patricia took one look at my face and immediately showed me into his private office. He was waiting by the window, a thick folder already prepared on his desk. "Lorraine," he said, gesturing to the chairs. "Coffee?" I shook my head. "Let's just get this done before I lose my nerve." He sat down and opened the folder, but first he looked at me. "Before we start, I need to make sure you understand what you're doing. Once we execute these changes, there's no going back without significant legal hurdles. Simone will contest this. Are you prepared for that fight?" "James," I said quietly, "I've been preparing for fights my whole life. I fought to get my business degree when counselors told me to be a secretary. I fought to get loans when banks said black women weren't good credit risks. I fought to keep my company alive when Marcus died. This fight?" I leaned forward. "This fight is for my own dignity, and I'm not losing." He nodded slowly. "Marcus would be proud of you right now. Marcus would be disappointed it took me this long." We spent 4 hours going through every document, every signature, every change. The Lorraine Jefferson Revocable Living Trust. I was the grantor and trustee, which meant I had absolute power to modify it. Right now, Simone was the primary beneficiary and successor trustee. We removed her from both positions and named the foundation as primary beneficiary instead. The car lease, terminated their authorization. The credit cards, withdrew my guarantee. The home equity line, that was more complicated since I was on the deed to their condo. We'd transfer my portion to a separate LLC I controlled. The cell phones, I was primary account holder, so we'd cancel their lines immediately. The monthly allowance I'd been sending, automatic transfer stopped. "When they try to contact me?" I asked. James leaned back, his expression grim. "You've already blocked their numbers, which was smart, but they'll try other means. Email, social media, showing up at your house. You need to decide now how to handle that." "I want a security system," I said. "Cameras, monitored alarm, everything. Installed today." "I'll make the call," James said, already reaching for his phone. By the time I stood to leave, my hand was cramped from signing, but my mind was crystal clear. The old trust was dead. In its place was a structure that protected my assets, supported my values, and cut out the cancer consuming my life savings. As I reached the door, James touched my arm gently. "Lorraine, one more thing. When this hits them, and it's going to hit like a freight train, they're going to panic. Devon especially. He's built his entire life on your money. Be prepared for desperate things. You think he'll get violent? I think he'll get unpredictable. Promise me, if they show up, if they threaten you, if you feel unsafe for even a second, call the police first, then call me. Don't try to handle it yourself." I promised, even though part of me couldn't believe it would come to that. The security company arrived at 3 o'clock. 2 technicians spent 4 hours installing cameras at every entrance, motion sensors in the garden, a new alarm system with a panic button by my bed. They showed me how to access camera feeds from my phone. "Mrs. Jefferson," the lead technician said as they packed up, "these systems are usually for people who are genuinely worried about their safety. If you're in danger—" "I'm not in danger," I interrupted sharply. I'm just being prepared. He nodded, but his eyes said he didn't believe me. Honestly, I wasn't sure I believed myself. That night, I made dinner the way Marcus had taught me. Slow-cooked collard greens, cornbread from scratch, catfish fried crispy and perfect. I set the table with good china, lit a candle, and sat down to eat alone. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I knew who it was before I opened it. Mom, it's Simone. Texting from a friend's phone. All our credit cards were declined today, and we can't reach you. What's going on? Call me immediately. This isn't funny. I read it 3 times, analyzing every word. Call me immediately. Not please or I'm worried. Just a command. And this isn't funny. As if the problem was me playing a joke, not them facing consequences. I deleted the message without responding. 5 minutes later, another text from a different number. Devin. Lorraine, this is Devin. I don't know what's happening, but we need to talk right now. Phone service cut off and bank called about the car lease. You can't just do this. Call me. I deleted that one too. Over the next hour, my phone rang 7 times from different numbers. I let every call go to voicemail. I didn't listen to a single message. Instead, I finished my dinner in peace, washed the dishes by hand, and went out to the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. I walked among the roses, touching their petals gently, breathing their fragrance. These roses had survived storms and droughts and harsh winters. They'd been cut back almost to nothing and grown back stronger. I could too. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Over the next 3 days, my phone continued ringing with unknown numbers. I stopped counting after 20. Text messages accumulated, each more desperate than the last. I didn't read them. James called twice with updates, everything moving forward smoothly. No contestation yet, though he expected that to change. On the 4th day, I was in the garden when my security system chimed. Someone at the front gate. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app, my stomach tightening. Simone and Devin stood at the gate, their car parked crookedly behind them. Even through the camera, I could see how much they'd changed in 4 days. Simone's hair in a messy ponytail, makeup smudged, wearing sweatpants I'd never seen. Devin looked worse, unshaven, eyes wild, gesturing angrily. I watched as Simone jabbed the intercom button repeatedly. When it didn't answer, Devin started pounding on the gate with his fist. Simone grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back. They were falling apart, exactly like James predicted. Part of me, the mother part, wanted to open the gate, but I knew that would mean throwing away everything I'd fought for. So I stayed in the garden, phone in hand, and watched through the camera as they spent 20 minutes at my gate before finally giving up. I watched Simone dissolve into tears, watched Devin punch the gate one last time. I watched them drive away, and I let myself cry for the first time since this nightmare started. Not for them, for the daughter I'd thought I had, who apparently had never existed at all. That evening, as automatic lights came on in my garden, I made tea and sat on the back porch. My phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number. This time, curiosity got the better of me. It was a photo. Simone and I, from maybe 5 years ago at her birthday dinner. We were both laughing, my arm around her shoulders, her head leaning against mine. Below the photo, words that made my hands shake. How can you do this to your own daughter? After everything we've been through? After Dad died and I was there for you? You're going to throw me away over one text? What kind of mother are you? I stared at that message for a long time, feeling something crack open inside my chest, because she was right about one thing. She had been there for me after Marcus died. She'd helped me sort through his things, held my hand at the funeral, called me every day for months. But she'd also been positioning herself, I realized with sickening clarity. She'd been there, yes, but she'd also been making sure she was indispensable, making sure I understood how much I needed her. She'd been building the foundation of obligation and guilt she was now trying to use against me. I typed a response before I could second-guess myself. I'm the kind of mother who loved you enough to give you everything, and I'm the kind of mother who loves you enough to stop. I hit send, then blocked that number too. The next morning, I drove to James's office unannounced. He was on the phone when I walked in, but took one look at my face and told whoever it was he'd call back. What happened? He asked. I need to know if there's any way they can contest what we've done. Any loophole, any legal challenge that could let them get their hands on my money. James leaned back, studying me. Lorraine, what did they do? I told him about the gate, about the messages, about the photo. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Legally, he finally said, the trust restructuring is airtight. You were of sound mind, you had clear cause, you acted within your rights. They can file a challenge, but they won't win. The only thing I'm worried about is... He stopped, reconsidering his words. What? I demanded. I'm worried about what happens when they realize legal challenges won't work, when they understand the money is truly gone. People like Devin, people who've built their entire identity on someone else's wealth, they can become dangerous when that foundation disappears. Not necessarily physically dangerous, but unpredictable. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you might want to consider leaving town for a while. Take a trip, visit your cousin in Charleston, just until things settle. Run away? Anger flashed through me. Hide from my own daughter? Not run away. Strategic retreat. There's a difference. I stood up, gripping the chair arms. James, I didn't spend 4 days restructuring my entire life just to abandon my home. I'm not going anywhere. He sighed. All right. But promise me you'll keep your security system armed, and if anything feels wrong, you call the police. I promised again, hating that I had to keep making the same promise. Because every time I said it, I had to confront the reality that this was my life now, potentially needing police protection from my own daughter. The answer came faster than expected. That night at 11:15, every light in my house blazed on and my phone erupted with an ear-splitting alarm. I jolted awake, heart hammering, completely disoriented. Someone had triggered the perimeter alarm. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the camera app. There on the screen, illuminated by harsh security lights, I saw Devin, alone this time, climbing over my fence, not the gate, the actual fence, using decorative ironwork as a ladder, pulling himself up and over with desperate strength that made my blood run cold. He dropped into my garden and started toward the house. Even through grainy camera footage, I could see something was wrong. His movements were jerky, uncoordinated. When he got close to the back door camera, I could see his face clearly. He was crying, and he was drunk. I didn't hesitate. I dialed 911 with one hand while pulling up James's number with the other. 911, what's your emergency? There's an intruder in my yard, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. He's trying to get into my house. I need police immediately. As I gave my address, I watched Devin try the back door, then start pounding on it when it didn't open. Lorraine! He screamed, and I could hear it through the door and through my phone simultaneously, creating a horrible echo. Lorraine, open this door! You can't do this! You can't just cut us off like we're nothing! Ma'am, officers are en route, the operator said. Stay on the line and stay away from doors and windows. Is the intruder armed? I don't think so. He's my son-in-law. He's drunk. Do you feel you're in immediate danger? I watched Devin collapse against my back door, sliding down to sit on the porch, his head in his hands. And despite everything, despite the fear, despite the betrayal, I felt something I didn't want to feel. I felt sorry for him. Ma'am? The operator prompted. No, I whispered. I don't think he's going to hurt me. I think he's just broken. Police arrived 6 minutes later, their lights painting my house red and blue. I watched through cameras as 2 officers approached Devin, who'd fallen asleep or passed out against my door. They woke him gently, helped him to his feet, and I could see them talking, their body language more concerned than aggressive. After a few minutes, one turned and looked directly at the camera, as if he knew I was watching. My doorbell rang. I went downstairs, shaking now, and checked the video screen. The officer on my porch was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes. Mrs. Jefferson? I'm Officer Williams. Are you all right, ma'am? I'm fine, I managed. Is he... What's going to happen? Well, he's definitely intoxicated, and technically he did trespass. If you want to press charges... No, I said quickly. No charges. I just want him to leave and not come back. Officer Williams nodded slowly. He seems more sad than dangerous, if that makes sense. He's been crying about his wife leaving him, about losing his home, about everything falling apart. Is there someone we can call to come get him? He shouldn't be driving. My first instinct was to say, call Simone, but I stopped myself. Of course I couldn't. I'd blocked her, cut off her phone, probably destroyed her marriage in the process. I started, then stopped. I don't know who to call. Officer Williams studied me, and I saw understanding dawn. This is a domestic situation, isn't it? Family trouble? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Ma'am, I can't tell you what to do, but I've been in law enforcement 8 years now, and I've seen this situation more times than I can count. Family money, family business, family conflict. It never ends well when you try to solve it through lawyers and security systems. Whatever's happening here, whatever broke between you and them, it's only going to get worse if you don't address it directly. Officer, I said quietly, with all due respect, you don't know what they've done. You're right, I don't. But I know what I see. A man who's so desperate he climbed a fence drunk to try to talk to his mother-in-law, and a woman who's built a fortress to keep her own family out. That's not safety, ma'am. That's prison. And eventually, you have to ask yourself who you're really locking up. He left before I could respond, taking Devin in the back of his patrol car. I watched through the window as they drove away, then stood in my dark house, surrounded by security cameras and alarm systems and every form of protection money could buy. And I felt more alone than I had since Marcus died. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in Marcus's study, surrounded by his books and awards and photographs of our life together, and I let myself ask the question I'd been avoiding. Was Officer Williams right? Was I building a prison? No, I told myself. I was protecting myself, standing up for my dignity, refusing to be used and manipulated. Everything I'd done was justified, necessary, right. But then why did I feel so hollow? The next morning, I called James and told him everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. Lorraine, he finally said, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. What you're doing, cutting them off financially, it's your right and probably correct. But what you're doing emotionally, completely shutting them out, refusing all communication, building walls, that's going to destroy what's left of your family permanently. Is that really what you want? They destroyed it first, I said, hearing how childish I sounded. Did they, though? They sent you a thoughtless text asking for space. That's their crime. Everything else, the financial dependence, the entitlement, the expectation of support, those things didn't appear out of nowhere, Lorraine. You trained them to expect those things by providing them without boundaries for years. They're not innocent, but neither are you. His words hit like a slap. So this is my fault? I'm to blame for being generous? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you built a system that taught them to see you as a resource instead of a person, and now you're punishing them for learning the lesson you taught. I'm not defending what they did. That text was cruel. But Lorraine, you can't fix a broken relationship by making it non-existent. I hung up on him. I actually pressed the red button and ended the call, something I'd never done in my life. Then I sat in Marcus's chair, hands shaking with rage and shame and something else I couldn't name. Because he was right. God help me, James was right. I had created this, not the cruelty of that text. That was all them. But the foundation of entitlement, the expectation of endless support, the complete lack of boundaries. I'd built that structure brick by brick, year by year, check by check. I'd thought I was being a good mother, but what I'd really been doing was making myself necessary rather than teaching independence. Marcus used to warn me about this. I remembered now, memories flooding back with painful clarity. After Simone graduated college and moved back home, just for a few months that turned into 2 years, Marcus had pulled me aside. Baby, he'd said, his hand gentle on my shoulder. You've got to let her struggle a little. She's never going to learn to fly if you keep carrying her. I'm not carrying her, I'd protested. I'm just helping her get established. You're paying her rent, her car insurance, her credit cards, her student loans. At what point does getting established turn into permanent dependence? When she's ready, when I know she's okay. Marcus had looked at me with such sadness. She'll never be okay, Lorraine. Not as long as she knows she can be not okay, and you'll fix it. You're not helping her. You're crippling her. We'd fought that night, one of our rare real arguments, and I'd refused to budge. Marcus, because he loved me and trusted my judgment even when he disagreed, had backed down. Less than a year later, he was gone, and I doubled down on supporting Simone, telling myself it was what he would have wanted, but that wasn't what he would have wanted at all. I sat in his study until morning light turned golden. Then I did something I hadn't done in days. I picked up my phone and scrolled through all those blocked messages, all those unknown numbers, and I started reading. The messages created a timeline of their collapse, a descent into panic that would have been satisfying if it hadn't been so heartbreaking. The first few were angry and demanding. How could you do this? This is illegal. But as days progressed and reality set in, the tone changed. Devon's messages showed a man completely unraveling. The Tesla repossessed, their condo in foreclosure, credit cards canceled, leaving thousands in debt with no way to pay. His business completely collapsed. And Simone's messages, God, Simone's messages destroyed me. Mom, please, I'm sorry about the text. Devon was having a bad day and I was stressed and we just needed breathing room. We didn't mean forever. Please answer me, please. I went to the house today. I saw you in the garden. I know you saw me on the camera. Why won't you just talk to me? I'm your daughter. Doesn't that mean anything? Devon lost his job today. Background check showed the repossession, and they rescinded the offer. We have 30 days before eviction, and nowhere to go. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking you to talk to me. Please, Mama, please. That last word, Mama, broke something I'd been holding together with sheer willpower. She hadn't called me that since she was a little girl. It was always Mom once she hit middle school. But now, desperate and broken, she'd reverted to the word she'd used when she was small and scared and needed me. And what had I done? I'd watched her through a camera and refused to open the door. I called James back. He answered on the first ring, his voice careful. Lorraine, I'm sorry I hung up on you, I said. You were right, about all of it. I take no pleasure in being right about this. I know. I took a shaky breath. I need to see them. I need to talk to Simone face to face. Can you arrange it? Somewhere neutral with you present? Are you sure you're ready? No, I admitted. But I don't think I'll ever be ready. So it might as well be now. If this story is touching something in you, if you've ever had to set boundaries with family or watch someone you love face consequences you put in place, please leave a comment below and subscribe to this channel because what happens next will surprise you. We agreed on a meeting for the following afternoon at James's office. He would reach out to Simone through her friend's phone number and set it up without giving any indication of what I planned to say. I spent the rest of that day preparing, trying to figure out what words could possibly bridge the canyon that had opened between us. The truth was, I didn't want to give them their money back. I didn't want to restore the trust the way it was, didn't want to go back to being their personal ATM. But I also couldn't keep living in this fortress of my own making. Couldn't keep watching my only child suffer through a camera lens and telling myself it was justice. There had to be a middle ground. I just had to find it. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Marcus died. I prayed. I wasn't particularly religious. We'd gone to church when Simone was young, but it had fallen away. But sitting in the darkness of my bedroom, I closed my eyes and talked to whatever power might be listening. I don't know what to do, I whispered. I don't know how to be angry and hurt and still be a mother. I don't know how to protect myself and still love her. I don't know how to teach her consequences without destroying her. If you're there, if you're listening, please help me find the words. No answer came, no divine inspiration, no sudden clarity, just the silence of my empty house and the weight of choices I'd have to make alone. The next day, I dressed in a simple gray dress, not the power suit, but not casual either. Something that said I was taking this seriously, without trying to intimidate. I put on my mother's earrings, touched Marcus's photo for luck, and drove to James's office. I arrived 15 minutes early. James met me in the lobby himself, unusual for him. He studied my face carefully. How are you holding up? I'm terrified, I admitted. I don't even know what I'm going to say. Then maybe start by listening, he suggested. Really listening. Not preparing your response or planning your defense. Just listen. He led me to a different conference room, smaller, more intimate, with a round table instead of that imposing rectangular one. Comfortable chairs, a box of tissues on the credenza, which made me wonder how emotional James expected this to get. We waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. At 15 minutes past the scheduled time, I started wondering if they'd even show up. Maybe Simone had too much pride. Maybe Devon convinced her it was a trap. Maybe. The door opened. Simone stood there, and I had to physically stop myself from gasping. In the week and a half since I'd cut them off, my daughter had lost weight she didn't have to lose. Her clothes hung on her frame, and her face looked 10 years older. Dark circles under her eyes, skin dull, hair pulled back in a style that suggested she'd stopped caring. She was alone. No Devon. "Mom," she said, and her voice cracked on the word. I stood up without planning to, without knowing what I was going to do, and then suddenly we were moving toward each other, and she was in my arms, and we were both crying. She collapsed against me the way she used to when she was little and scared, and I held her the way I always had, and for just a moment, just one moment, nothing else mattered except that my daughter was here, and she was safe, and I could feel her heartbeat against mine. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed into my shoulder. "Mama, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I held her tighter, my own tears streaming, and I realized that this moment right here was what I'd been searching for. Not justice, not revenge, not even understanding. Just this. My daughter in my arms, both of us broken, both of us trying to find our way back to each other. James quietly left the room, closing the door to give us privacy. Simone and I stood there holding each other for a long time, until the storm of tears finally subsided and we were able to pull apart enough to look at each other's faces. "Sit down, baby," I said softly, guiding her to one of the chairs. I took the one next to her, close enough to hold her hand, but far enough to see her expression. "Tell me what happened. Tell me everything." And she did. The words poured out in a rush, a confession that had clearly been building pressure. She told me about stress at work, about Devon's business failures he'd been hiding from both of us, about mounting debt that kept growing no matter how much money I sent. She told me about arguments between them, resentment, blame. "That text," she said, her voice shaking, "that text wasn't about you. It was about us. Devon and I had been fighting all morning about money, about his failures, about everything. He said I was too dependent on you, that I ran to you every time we had a problem instead of figuring it out ourselves, and I got defensive and angry, and when you texted on your birthday, God, Mom, I'm so ashamed, when you texted it felt like proof that he was right, that I couldn't even have a conversation with my husband without you checking in. So you pushed me away," I said quietly. "So I pushed me away," she echoed. "And Devon wrote that text, and I saw it before he sent it, and I should have stopped him. I should have deleted it and called you and explained. But instead, I liked it. I endorsed it. Because in that moment, I wanted to prove to him that I could choose him over you, that I wasn't the mama's girl he kept accusing me of being." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, and I saw in her face a depth of regret I'd never seen before. This wasn't the entitled young woman who'd been taking my money for granted. This was someone who'd hit bottom hard and was finally understanding what the fall had cost. "I destroyed my relationship with my mother to win an argument with my husband," she whispered. "And then, when everything fell apart, I realized I'd lost you both." "What do you mean, lost you both?" "Devon's gone, Mom. We separated 3 days ago. He's staying with a friend, trying to figure out his next move. And she laughed bitterly. "I'm sleeping on my best friend's couch, working double shifts at a restaurant because it's the only job I could get fast enough, trying to figure out how I'm going to pay back credit card debt that's in my name." I sat with this information, processing it. Part of me felt vindicated. Yes, let them face consequences. But a larger part, the mother part, just ached for my daughter's pain. "Simone," I said carefully, "I need you to understand something. What I did, cutting off your access to my money, that wasn't punishment. Or at least, it wasn't just punishment. It was a boundary. It was me finally recognizing that by giving you everything, I'd given you nothing that mattered." "What do you mean?" "I mean you never learned to stand on your own because I never made you. Every time you stumbled, I caught you. Every time you failed, I fixed it. Every time you needed something, I provided it. And I told myself I was being a good mother. But what I was really doing was making sure you'd always need me." She started to protest, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish. Your father tried to tell me this before he died. He warned me that I was loving you in a way that would hurt you in the long run. And I didn't listen, because I couldn't imagine how love could possibly hurt someone. But he was right, baby. He was so right." I squeezed her hand. "You are capable of so much more than you've ever shown because you've never had to be. You're smart and talented and strong, but you've never had to be any of those things because I made it so you didn't have to. And that text message, as cruel as it was, actually did us both a favor. It forced both of us to see what our relationship had really become. A transaction, Simone said softly. You were the bank, and I was the customer. Yes, I confirmed, even though it hurt to say out loud. And neither of us knew how to be anything else anymore. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this truth settling between us. Then Simone spoke again, her voice small and uncertain. So what happens now? I'm not asking for the money back, Mom. I know I don't deserve it, and honestly, I don't think I even want it anymore. These past 10 days have been the hardest of my life, but they've also been the first time I've ever actually had to take care of myself, and I don't want to go back to the way things were. I felt something in my chest loosen, a knot I hadn't even realized I was holding. This was the daughter I'd been hoping was still in there somewhere, the one who could learn, who could grow, who could face hard truths and come out stronger. What happens now, I said slowly, is that we rebuild. Not the way things were, but something new, something healthier. I'm not going to restore your trust fund, Simone. I'm not going to go back to paying your bills or solving your problems, but I'm also not going to shut you out of my life completely. What does that mean, practically? I'd been thinking about this all night. It means we start over as mother and daughter, not as creditor and debtor. It means I'm here for you emotionally. You can call me, visit me, talk to me about your struggles and successes, but financially, you're on your own. I understand, she said. And honestly, Mom, I think that's what I need, what we both need. There is one thing I'm willing to do, I added. If you want it, I'm not going to give you money, but I am willing to give you something potentially more valuable. She looked at me questioningly. Advice, mentorship, the 40 years of business experience your father and I built together. If you want to learn how to really manage money, how to build a career, how to create actual financial stability instead of just surviving on someone else's wealth, I can teach you that, but only if you actually want to learn, not if you're just looking for another handout. I saw something shift in Simone's expression, a spark of something that might have been hope or determination, or maybe just the first glimpse of the woman she could become. I want to learn, Mama. I really do. I want to make you proud. I want to make Daddy proud. Then we start tomorrow, I said firmly. You come to my house at 8 in the morning. We're going to go through your finances together. Every debt, every expense, every obligation. We're going to create a real budget, a real plan. And then we're going to figure out a career path for you based on your actual skills and interests, not just whatever job you could get fastest. You'd do that for me? After everything? Simone, I'm your mother. That doesn't change just because we're changing the terms of our relationship. I love you. I've always loved you. But I'm going to love you in a way that actually helps you from now on, not in a way that just makes me feel needed. She started crying again, but these tears felt different, cleaner somehow, like they were washing away old patterns and making room for something new. We held each other for a long time, and I felt the first real hope I'd experienced since this whole nightmare started. When James finally knocked and came back into the room, he found us sitting side by side, hands clasped, both red-eyed but smiling. He looked between us carefully, reading the room. Everything okay in here? Everything's going to be okay, I said. Eventually. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're going to do it together. Over the next 3 months, I watched my daughter transform. It wasn't smooth. There were setbacks and breakdowns and nights when she called me crying because she'd had to choose between buying groceries and putting gas in her friend's car to get to work. Every time, I had to stop myself from offering money, had to remind myself that struggle was the teacher she needed. But slowly, steadily, she got stronger. She found a new job in retail management, making $15 an hour with benefits. She moved into a small apartment with 2 roommates. Nothing fancy, but it was hers and she was proud of it. She started paying more than the minimum on her credit cards. She joined a free community gym and started taking care of herself. And every Thursday morning, she still came to my house for our business sessions. We'd moved beyond basic budgeting now and into more complex topics, investment strategies, retirement planning, the principles of building real wealth instead of just managing money. I was teaching her everything Marcus and I had learned together, and she was absorbing it like she'd been thirsty for this knowledge her whole life. One Thursday in late October, almost exactly 3 months after that devastating birthday text, Simone arrived with a different energy about her. She was smiling, really smiling, in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Okay, you're clearly bursting to tell me something," I said, pouring her coffee. "What is it?" "Two things," she said, pulling out her phone. "First, I got a job offer, a real one in my field, marketing coordinator for a nonprofit downtown. It's only $40,000 a year to start, but it has room for growth, and it's what I actually want to be doing." "Simone, that's wonderful." I felt pride swell in my chest, not the pride of a benefactor watching their investment pay off, but the real pride of a mother watching her child succeed on her own merits. "What's the second thing?" She pulled up her banking app and turned it toward me. "Look at my savings account." I looked at the screen. The balance showed $3,147.23. I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Baby, you did this. You actually did this." "I did," she said, her voice thick with emotion too. "It's not much, I know. It's not the kind of money we used to deal with. But it's mine, Mom. Every single dollar I earned myself. And for the first time in my life, I understand why you and Daddy were so proud of what you built. It's not about the amount. It's about what it represents. It represents independence," I said softly. "Self-respect. Knowing you can take care of yourself, no matter what happens." "Exactly." She closed her phone and looked at me seriously. "I want to thank you, Mom, for cutting me off. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. If you'd kept supporting me, I'd still be that entitled, spoiled person who took everything for granted. I'd still be married to Devin, both of us living a fake life, funded by your hard work. I'd never have known what I was actually capable of." I reached across the table and took her hands. "You were never spoiled, Simone. You were loved, but I loved you in the wrong way, in a way that kept you small. I'm just grateful we both figured it out before it was too late." 6 months after that birthday text that changed everything, I stood in a conference room at the Atlanta Urban League, surrounded by 15 young entrepreneurs, all people of color, all hungry, all brilliant, all lacking only the capital and mentorship to turn their dreams into reality. This was the inaugural cohort of the Marcus Jefferson Legacy Fund. I looked at their faces as I prepared to speak. A young woman with a food truck concept that would bring healthy meals to food desserts. A man with a tech startup focused on accessible banking for the unbanked. A couple with a sustainable fashion line made from reclaimed materials. Each one of them reminded me of Marcus and me 40 years ago, standing at the starting line with nothing but determination and a dream. My husband Marcus used to say that the difference between people who make it and people who don't isn't talent or intelligence, I told them. It's access. Access to capital, access to networks, access to people who believe in you before you've proven yourself. That's what this fund is about. Not charity, not handouts, but access to the tools you need to build something real, something lasting, something you can be proud of. I saw Simone standing at the back of the room, and our eyes met. She was volunteering as a mentor for the program, using the business skills I'd been teaching her to help others navigate the same journey she was on. She smiled at me, and I saw in her face the woman she'd become. Not the entitled daughter who'd taken my generosity for granted, but a strong, independent person who'd learned that the hardest lessons are often the most valuable. After the presentation, as people mingled and networked, Simone came up to me and hugged me tight. "Daddy would be so proud of you," she whispered. "He'd be proud of both of us," I said. "We finally figured out what he tried to tell us all along, that real love isn't about protecting people from struggle. It's about giving them the tools to overcome it themselves." As I drove home that evening, the sun setting over Atlanta, I thought about how much had changed in 6 months. I'd lost a trust fund, but gained a daughter. I'd given up control, but found peace. I'd stopped being needed and started being respected. My phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Simone. "Thank you for being brave enough to let me fall. I love you, Mama." I smiled, tears blurring my vision, and typed back, "Thank you for being strong enough to get back up. I love you too, baby, always." That night, I sat in my garden as the stars came out, and I talked to Marcus the way I sometimes still did. "We did it, baby," I whispered to the darkness. It took me longer than it should have, and I almost destroyed everything in the process, but we did it. Simone's going to be okay. More than okay. She's going to be extraordinary. The roses rustled in the evening breeze, and I chose to believe it was his way of saying he'd always known we would find our way. Because that's the thing about family, about love, about legacy. It's not about the money you leave behind or the things you provide. It's about the strength you help build, the lessons you teach through your actions, and the courage you find to do the hard thing instead of the easy thing. I'd spent 40 years thinking that being a good mother meant giving my daughter everything she wanted. It took a single cruel text message on my 67th birthday to teach me the truth. Being a good mother means giving your child what they need, even when, especially when, that means giving them nothing at all. The Marcus Jefferson Legacy Fund would go on to help hundreds of entrepreneurs over the years. But the person it saved first, the person it truly transformed, was sitting in my living room every Thursday morning, learning to build her own legacy, one hard-earned dollar at a time. And that, more than any amount of money in any trust fund, was worth everything. If this story moved you, if you've ever had to make the painful choice between enabling and empowering someone you love, please share it. Leave a comment telling me what you would have done. And subscribe, because the stories we tell about family, about sacrifice, about tough love, these are the stories that remind us we're not alone in our struggles. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the space to become who they were always meant to be, even if, especially if, it breaks your heart to do it.